morning or early afternoon. So the fishing's been red hot, and I caught a nice big striped bass. So it's time to, which I'm going to serve for dinner, but it's time to clean the fish and make myself some sashimi and ceviche for lunch. So stick around and we can see what happens. Go on. Go on. All right, we'll see whether or not this works, okay? You need a sharp knife. Fish's been on ice. It's firm and it's fat. It's a 29-inch fall run striper. And so I'm going to make it easy on myself, and I'm going to rip it, do a very quick fillet, get rid of the frame and the head, although I could keep them to make soup. I'm not going to do that today. And then I'm going to use the belly to make some ceviche and some sashimi. All right, you start with a very sharp knife, all right, and make sure it's sharp. I have a pretty nice little diamond knife sharpener. This one's fairly sharp. And you go right to the top of the fish, above the center line. You make a small cut. You want to stay above the backbone. You might have to just sort of poke in because there's a lot of scales. Once you cut in, you can make the first cut. And the cut that you're going to make is the length of the fish along above the backbone. And you don't have to go deeply on the first pass. You just want to open the skin, get the scales out of the way, and make sure that you stay above the rib cage. And it's not that hard, but it takes a little bit of practice. When you get, mostly down towards the end of the fish, past the dorsal fin, you can make a deeper cut. You want to make sure that you're behind the anal pore of the fish because you don't want to open up the guts. Because I just assume keep this fish as clean and fresh as I can keep her. It's not a disaster if it happens, but it's easier if it doesn't. So I'm about to push the knife over the rib cage and behind the pore, and then I'm gonna, pointing the knife down as I move, I'm gonna take the end of this fillet off, and it's working pretty well. May not be pretty, but it'll work. And we're going to take, if I don't get it quite right, we're going to trim and snack as we go on. At this point, what you can do is gently push your knife alongside the rib cage, and at the same time, you're going deeper and deeper into the fish. It helps if you cut right here, above the gill cover. To get a little bit of an angle so that you can actually lift the fillet off. And there's some sharp bones. You don't want to cut too deeply, but it'll help you to be able to sort of peel the fillet away from the ribs. All right, so I'm getting there. And as I get closer and closer, I do end up cutting a couple of ribs. So I'm going to take this cut all the way down to the belly, being careful not to open up the sack with the organs in it if I can avoid it. And you can almost hear it as I push over, I'm not cutting them, as I push over the ribs and separate the fillet from the frame. And that's really what I'm doing right now. And at this point, I'm about 75% there. I don't want to cut into the belly, so I'm going to stop here, and that's my first fillet, which I'm going to put in the sink. Now, just because I can, there's still some fish here. I'm going to take a couple of little trimmings, throw them on a tray, and I'll be serving them with wasabi and soy, which I might say I keep in my tackle box, in my glove compartment, and sometimes in my pockets. Little packets are good. These little ribbons of stripers will make great sashimi for lunch. All right, so next step, the other side, flip the fish over, do the same thing again. Little angle cut above the rib cage, then you turn it, come back on top of the backbone, making just a ½ inch deep cut to get you started. We're going to get down to about here on the fish. I'm going to do the same thing as I did before, although backwards, and make a line cut right here so I can grab the fillet a little bit better as I try to separate it when it gets to that point. Now I'm going to keep going down till I'm just above the anal pore. You know what they say about, well, never mind, everybody has one, but not everybody is one. You can figure it out yourself. And now I'm pushing through and over the rib cage. And I'm going to come out there. Now I'm going to do it again just behind the pore. Come out right here. You know, you sort of have to rock the fillet knife over the ribs or over the, as you come back. And now I'm just going to push gently to try to separate the meat from the frame, which I have done pretty well. Now I'm going to sort of drag my knife alongside the above the ribs, separating the meat as best I can. Can't always do it perfectly, but you get as much of it as you can. And then I'm going to take the second fillet off the fish. Right? And again, it's going in the sink. Now, there's a couple of things I want to do before I dispose of this frame. And I have to say that if you know, on some days, I may very well give the head to some friends of mine who love to make fish stock. I don't feel like getting that involved today. But so what I'm doing is I'm trimming some of the, you know, small pieces that I might otherwise have just left on the frame that I missed, because I don't like to waste much. I don't like to keep fish that I'm not going to eat, and I certainly don't like to waste the fish that I keep. Now, what I'm going to do next is just sort of a personal preference thing. I actually love striper belly. It's called Suzuki, and it's the fattest part of the fish. So I'm going to remove the striper belly, and we'll deal with it in a bit. So I'm going to cut the piece that I dealt with, and I'm going to trim along the ribs to separate it from the intestines and all the other good parts of the fish that we won't be eating today. Flip it over. As you can see, it gets a tiny bit messy at this point. Do the same thing on this side. And you know, striper belly is really good as sashimi, and in ceviche it gives you a different texture than the striper itself. But the other thing about it is that it makes it incredibly nice, because it's fatty. It's really nice to serve with eggs in the morning. Okay, so I've done this, and now I'm going to release the frame. There's just one quick thing. I don't want this frame floating around in the harbor. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually cut into it, and then because I live on a boat, I'm going to release it into the sea where I'm going to feed crabs and lobsters. Quite a bit, I suspect. Let me get a good knife to punch with. Now we'll punch. It's a little messy. It's fairly disgusting. But if you don't do it, then the fish will float. So I've done it there, and there, and there. And now I'm pretty sure that I've made it so that this fish will take his place along the other fish frames until the lobsters and the crabs get him. So here we go. One quick move. Done. We call that fillet and release. It's you know, it's really interesting. I love to catch fish. I think you know that if you've watched this channel. But I also understand that along with, you know, recreational angling and releasing fish comes mortality. And so I try to be blunt with you. And if I catch a fish, it's big enough to keep. I usually keep it and stop fishing for the day. There was a time when I would keep fishing for fun, and I still will do that from time to time. But figuring 10% mortality if you catch 10 stripers, and you keep one of the other 9 that you caught dies too, and you just don't want that to happen. So the slot limit's really good. It's helping a lot. We're going to take a quick pause, but we'll keep this running while I just see who's bothering me on my cell phone. Okay. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean up here because it's pretty messy. But first I'm going to skin those fillets. And I have another piece of this expensive custom-made. Actually, it's you know what it is. It's a whole food bag. We recycle here. I'm going to just wash quickly in cold water. Usually, I prefer salt water, but if you're going to use fresh water, make sure that you pat the fish dry quickly. I'm going to get as much of the blood off the fish as I can because it's just not that pretty. And then I'm going to skin this fillet. It often helps if you have a rag of some sort around. I do. I'm going to have one of them. All right. So I'm going to take this fillet with the skin on. I'm going to pat it dry real quick. And I'm going to do a quick trim of the skin. Actually, I'm going to turn it the other way. I'm a righty and I skin from right to left. Just pop it down. It's a little hard because there's a lip on the table, but the knife is sort of bends a little bit. I'm going to cut in. I want to trim this tight. I don't want very much dark meat, but I do want some on this fish just to show that it was a striper. I push, and I'm holding onto the skin. I've got a good grip on it now. That's a pretty tight fillet, pretty nice. And there's still a little bit of white meat on it, and as I said, I'm saving scraps today because I'm going to make a little ceviche and sashimi for lunch. So there we go, a couple pieces, and now I'll release the fillet. By the way, there's wasabi and soy, and also garlic and sriracha, but fish is great. Okay, that's one. We'll do the other. We'll bag them and then we'll make lunch. Nope. Same thing. Quickly pat it down. If you leave fresh water on a fish, they tend to get a little bit soft, and so I prefer not to do it. Easily done. I don't know. Yeah, I'm still in the picture. Same deal. This time I trimmed it tighter. There's nothing left on the skin, so I'm going to toss it. Sort of wipe off my hands. Get a trash bag later, but right now I'm going to get a big bag that I'm going to put these fillets in, and then I'm going to put them in the cold chest. So about split them like that. 1, 2. About a gallon bag here. About a gallon of striper. It's enough to feed couple of families. There we go. All right, go in the freezer. In fact, I'm going to put it in the chest bag. All right, next step, clean up a little bit. All right, it's fairly easy. The brown paper bags really do make a huge difference. I don't have to worry about getting things messy, although I did manage to get a little bit of blood and guts on my computer. Before I get rid of all the paper, there's one last thing that I want to do, and it's for my lunch. And that's to, and I'm going to sit down to do it because it's a little bit more focus will help. It's going to be to sort of peel what I saved as the belly away from the skin that it's on, and this is a little harder because it's thin and bony. All right, there we go. One piece. Second piece, and because of the way that we did this, you also have to trim the inside of the fillet where it rubbed up against the organs, where the sac that holds the organs is. So we'll put these two pieces away, but let me just finish the trim. And again, this is the best part of the fish. On a commercial fish, it's substantially bigger and substantially fatter. We do have a slot limit in Massachusetts. Recreational stripers, in order to keep them, they have to be between 28 and under 35 inches. So 34.999 is okay, but 35 is apparently not. And then we allow the commercial anglers during the season to keep larger fish. The theory here is that there's so many recreational anglers that by letting the bigger fish go, we're taking a lot of pressure off breeding females. And that's what we need to keep this stock healthy. A couple little pieces here. Get tossed, and I'm ready to make some lunch, which is not going to be very complicated. And, you know, you often do this on a fishing boat, and if you do, you get to be pretty popular and get invited back. That's how I learned how to do this with a couple of tuna clips. It's also bad luck to bring wasabi, soy, and ginger in large empty coolers with you when you go fishing, but hey, every now and then you gotta take a chance. So here's the plan. We're gonna make this easy on me. I'm gonna take just a little bit of the sashimi that I just cut, the striper belly, and I'm going to eat it right now with some wasabi and some soy. I'm going to cut a couple little pieces and lay it out. I also want you to know that the leftovers feed the fish here, and in that way they don't go to waste. If you live on land, you probably might want to consider composting. Ironically, the first ordinance in the United States regulating fish, actually in colonial days, was one that prohibited the use of striped bass as fertilizer because it was too good a fish to waste. All right, a couple little pieces of striped bass here. And this is not a fancy lunch. I'm also going to take a couple of pieces and chop them up. So those are like little ribbons, you know, that I'm going to eat. And this is going to be and that's going to be the ceviche. And I'm just chopping a few pieces up for the, that's going to be the sashimi, and this is going to be the ceviche. You don't have to make them regular size, and it also so often helps if you really like sashimi. It has to be fresh. If you like, if you like ceviche, it sometimes helps to use more than one species or more than one cut because the texture difference really makes a difference. So I'm using some of the belly meat and also a little bit of the fillet. Got to be careful. The one thing I don't want to do is end up eating any scales. There aren't any bones in this fillet. All right, so I've got a little bit of pile of striper that's going in this little bowl right here, and a couple of pieces that are right there. And this is not a very elaborate setup. To make it pretty, I'm going to cut up a handful of aromatic herbs. In this case, I'm going to use chives, which I'm going to just toss into the ceviche. And I'm going to cut a little bit of this yellow pepper. Again, mostly for texture. If you have a hot pepper, that works. You can use hot Italian peppers. Just be careful. I add my spice with sriracha and use sweet peppers, but other people have different styles. Ceviche is a very, very, very individualized dish. If you want to go ghost peppers and cilantro, good luck to you. If you want to go maple syrup and unbelievably fresh scallops along with lime juice, that works for me as well. The last thing that goes in here before I add the sauce is a little bit of fresh garlic. I would use fresh lime, but it's been windy and cold and I haven't been off the boat for a day. So I used the limes in the mojitos last night. So I'm going to use some lime juice. Toss in a little bit of this garlic. Add, in this case, not fresh, but squeezed lime to cover it. And just wait about 30 seconds, or 3 hours, or any amount less than a day. After a day, I don't really like it. Some people do, but I think the less cured, the better. But then I'm a big fan of raw fish. Okay, so I'm going to stir this up, and while I stir it up, let it cure for just a few minutes before I add the sriracha. Before I do that, I'm just going to take a little bit of, in this case, I'm going to use ponzu, which comes in a little plastic bag, which is citrus soy. I'm going to pour some, I'm going to actually tear this little thing and drip it right into this little bowl. I'm going to take two bags. Actually, I'm going to add a little bit of organic, low sodium soy sauce because it's a little bit too sweet for my taste. There we go. And I'm also going to take some of this wasabi. The little packets are very convenient. And the thing that I like best about them is that, otherwise it dries out. I don't eat that much, but this way it's always ready for when I want it. I'm just going to put a little bit of it on the side of the bowl because it's pretty hot. I'll be blunt with you. And now I'm going to take my first bite, which means that I'm going to switch cameras, which is kind of fun. All right. Here we are, and here, let's see if I can get it. Is that right? Yep. This is the ceviche. Which I'm going to enjoy. Now, it's really flavorful, very garlicky with a little bit of sweet onions on it. But I'd like it a little spicier, so I'm going to put a bit of sriracha in it, but not too much, because it'll overwhelm it. 2-3 drops, 4, okay? And then stir it back up. Let this sit and cure. I'm going to eat it in a little bit. And now I'm going to take the pieces of tuna and the wasabi and soy that I have right here. I'm going to take a little piece, tuna, sorry, a striper, sashimi. I'm going to dip it in the soy and touch it to the wasabi. And it tastes like candy. It's sweet as can be, with a little bit of kick from the wasabi. But it's a terrific fish, and one which I hope you'll have a chance to enjoy for yourself. So, I'm not going to eat lunch with you, but I'm going to thank you, and I'm going to cross-post it to Facebook in a bit. In the meantime, I hope you enjoy your day as much as I've enjoyed mine. Thanks. Okay, now we'll go.